Okay, well, welcome everybody, and we're here back to do the last chapter on wisdom with David Hill and Brad Gallup and Ofer Meyer and Judy Sedgeman and myself. We're going to start on the chapter on wisdom, which is the last chapter in the missing link. And who would like to start here? Or is there anything that anybody has that they'd like to say even before we start, as we speak to our veterans around the world who have, have faced things that most of us have not faced. Last night I did watch the movie Midway, and it was dedicated both to the Japanese and to the American soldiers that died that day in that battle, and they go to war for their country, and each country feeling justified for the reason that they're in it, and it was very moving. It was very. I found it. I always enjoy movies where at the end they show the real people, the picture of the real person and what happened to them. That it was very moving. But so, who would like to read the first page from Wisdom? Judy,
I'll
you
go
want to go?
here. Sure.
Okay.
Spiritual wisdom lies within the consciousness of all living creatures. It is formless. The second it is revealed to a human soul, it has taken on a form that can only represent its true nature. In the old Hawaiian religion, the kahunas, or wise priests, said the wisdom they were trying to convey was a secret that could not be told. Just going to read beyond that. They were not intentionally withholding the secret, but literally could not convey it by words alone, words only being symbolic of their true meaning. The answer sought is beyond the word. I'm going to stop there. But I love this because I think that this is what often frightens people about, we're always looking for something tangible, something to grab onto, something to measure, something we can graph. And to me, the idea that it's part of us. It's this formless energy that if you can't grab onto it, you can't get rid of it either. It's just part of us, that our spiritual wisdom is intrinsic to life, not just to us, but to life, as it's said here. And I think what the kahunas were trying to say is, if you have to talk about it, you're diminishing it already, by pushing it into a little formula, as opposed to just getting the feeling beyond the word. And I remember Sid always used to say that: listen for the feeling, look beyond the words, listen beyond the words. And I think that as we end this discussion of the missing link, the whole book has been pointing to me in this direction, that our spiritual nature is where our health and our well-being always reside. It's in our connection to the spiritual, and not in the words that we use to express it.
Well, that's well said, Judy, and it really speaks to that never broken, nothing lacking.
Yeah.
And so many of people who have had difficult experiences, I think, sometimes feel broken. So feel that something has been taken away, or they're now lacking. But to know that this can't be touched by quote trauma, or by genes or heredity or anything. Anybody else want to comment before I continue?
I think will, if that's okay. It reminds me of the start of my journey looking into the principles, and for me, when I read and listened to bits and pieces, it really resonated for me as an individual, and I could see how helpful it could be for this conversation that we're having as veterans together. But the soldier in me, when I did my training, wanted to really pull it apart, really get into the weeds of what different things meant and why they meant it. Until the day that it just struck me that actually it didn't matter the words that were being said to me, or how I put it across. It was all to do with the feeling, and the feeling that other people get from this conversation comes from the authenticity of the person that's telling their story, or their version of how they understand this as an idea. And that for me was such a huge insight, and really shook the way that I learned, and allowed me to be so much more open to this as an idea, and to be so much more curious about how I believe or don't believe about things, in a judgmental way, but in a, what are the possibilities that I could gain from this to expand and progress and grow. And it really gave the confidence to be me with this and live it, rather than try and explain it as a book might, or as someone else might, but just to say it as Dave might. And Dave might say it like this today, and he might say it very differently tomorrow, and that's all because it's the authenticity of it, the strength of the get from it that's so important. And yeah, the fact that it's beyond words absolutely sums that up, because it isn't the words, it is 100% the feeling, and that is where the hope is.
Thank you, David. Brad or Ofer, would either of you like to add something before we go forward?
Maybe I would like to add something. Listen, I have problems with my connection, so if I break out, tell me and I will move to another room. I wanted to say that for me, when I discovered that I can access my wisdom, which is something I learned from you guys, actually, like being with you when we went, like, I remember the first time I was in London in the conference, and I gave this talk at the end of the conference. So the Rabbi Chaim, he did something, he didn't tell me I was going to speak. And suddenly, at the last day, I see my name like as a speaker, you know, and I was like, what's that? And he was like, listen, don't worry. If he says, listen, Tzaddik, don't worry. You need to rely on your wisdom and everything will be okay. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, listen, you just go up there and you clear your mind and everything would be okay. And I went up there and I ended up speaking for like an hour, I think. Or it was really long, you know. And for me, it was a lesson. Because I realized that every time I freak out, I get nervous, I can just, it's like a safety net. I can always lean back on it, and I know things will work themselves out. And for me, I don't know, for me, I think it enabled me to deal with a lot of anxiety I used to have about things. I mean, when I get excited, I can always remind myself, okay, listen, you don't have to worry. Things will come to you in the moment. And so that's that.
That's beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. Brad, did you have anything you wanted to add before we go forward? Or?
I mean, no, I just love hearing what everybody's sharing, and it all rings true for me. And the wisdom part, when I first started doing this work, was about really, this was the place where I was able to really drop in right off the bat and said, this is something here I can really work with. I heard the true nature of it.
Yeah.
As soon as that got spoken to me, and then to know now with the coaching that I do with veterans and first responders, that all I have to do is keep pointing them back to their own. I don't have to have the answers.
Right.
Is so much more freeing. And when I just keep telling them that that's all I'm going to do and continue to encourage them, it doesn't take long, and pretty soon they believe it too. So I just, I love what everyone's saying, and thank you for letting me add to that right there. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and the question is whether they believe it or whether they see it, because there is a difference between seeing something and believing something, isn't it? But I think a lot of the times people are having that internal experience where their eyes, like each of us have had, where it's not a belief, you just see it, right? You experience it. So would you like to continue from there, Brad?
Sure. The answer sought is beyond the word. No one can give away wisdom. A teacher can only lead you to it via words, hoping that you will have the courage to look within yourself and find it inside your own consciousness, beyond the word. I guess I'll just read this next page. If that's okay.
Sure.
The wisdom humanity seeks lies within the consciousness of all human beings, trapped and held prisoner by their own personal minds. Wisdom is not found in the word of form, nor in remote corners of the globe. Wisdom lies within our own consciousness. Only you have the golden key to your soul and the wisdom that lies within.
Wow.
Yeah, so it just says it so beautifully in those 4 paragraphs right there. The essence of what we're all, when we hear the truth, we hear the truth of it. And that it's always there. It's just, we're just held by trapped by our own personal minds and our thinking. So, yeah, it's beautiful.
It's hard to improve on what's written, isn't it? You know, Judy and I and Tom and Jack found that we knew we couldn't just have our whole article be Sid quotes, but at the same time, every time we started to give our take on it, it got diluted really quickly. And we all felt it, you know.
Right.
It was a little bit of a conundrum there. Anyone want to comment on, it sounds like it's what everyone was pointing to earlier, but is there anyone want to comment on these 4 paragraphs?
I had one thing that it just occurred to me while I was listening to Brad reading this, is that one of my clients, when I was doing my veterans groups, said to me, I don't think I have wisdom.
Right.
He heard that. He said, I feel like I've been a loser my whole life. And he'd had a very difficult life before. He kind of went in the service to escape a difficult life and then recreated a different difficulty. But, and it was an interesting moment because I thought to myself, I guess there are a lot of people that think of themselves as the exception.
Right.
And what this is pointing to is you can't be the exception. Wisdom is a universal quality. It's a feature, not a bug. You know, it's who we are.
Yeah.
But you can create your own exception with your personal mind.
Right.
And you know, and it's funny because we ended up having a kind of deep discussion of that with some of the other veterans in the group who were trying to determine then what do you mean by my personal mind? You know, that how easy it is for us to just think of ourselves, take those labels on. I'm a loser, I'm disappointing my parents, I'm this, I'm that, or whatever, and not be able to see, no, I'm just a human being. And I have access to all the same resources as every other human being and living creature on the planet, in the universe. And that's humbling, but it's also simplifying.
Yeah, I've with a lot of people who thought they were the exception, I said, oh my gosh, here's an asterisk. There's an asterisk in my book that I never noticed before. Everybody except, and then I say their name. I say, I didn't realize you were so special. Oh my gosh. I never saw this. We might as well stop talking. It's been nice knowing you. Shall we talk sports?
You know, I have a story I want to share. A few years ago, a woman calls me from London, and she says, "Hi, Ofer. I saw you giving a lecture in Tikkun, and I was wondering if you can help my son." And I was like, "Okay, what's your son's problem?" And she said, "I think he's very lost, and you need someone that can show him wisdom. And I'm very impressed with the principles and everything, blah, 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 and I want you to maybe share your wisdom with him." And I said, "Okay, so but what's the problem with him?" So she said, lately he's been the religious, an Orthodox religious family, and the guy was, how do you say when someone is becoming less religious? Maybe we have a word for it. So her son was becoming less religious. So she said, "Listen, I want you to come and share your wisdom with him, and so he will be religious again." And I'm like, "Well, what?" And I said, "Listen, I'm going to share my wisdom. I'm going to share what I know with him, and he will do what his wisdom tells him. So she said to me, listen, I have to ask you a question. I mean, you understand that wisdom is like coming from Hashem, right? Like God. So if wisdom comes from God, so you understand that you need to be religious, no? So I told her, no, that's your wisdom. that's not, and she couldn't understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
She was very, very, very confused about it. And because I think people can easily take it, and because it's so vague, I think people sometimes want to, they really have to put it on something, you know, and it's really easy to confuse. You need a form to cling to.
And that whole is the idea that something bigger than you is pouring it into you rather than it's flowing through you and coming from you. You know, I think that's the distinction that people stumble on when they're looking for, you know, which greater being or higher power or whatever can I turn to get my wisdom back. And the fact is you never lost it.
Yeah.
You were born with it and you just always have access to it.
But I think that's vital. You know, did I interrupt you, Judy? I'm sorry.
No,
I think that's an important point, because that's why I think, and I even, you know, dealt with a little bit in the course, that's why people misinterpret this as a religion, because it does go against sometimes people's religious beliefs. Right. The idea, even though it's what the physicists would say, that everything that exists in the universe is the same energy. There is no separate. We're not separate from that which is at the source of the universe. Everything is a manifestation into form of a formless energy, and the difference between us and the rocks and the trees and the plants is that we have the ability to know that and a free will to use the power of mind, which is only one, in a very personal way. And that goes against a lot of beliefs, and I just tell people, I'm not telling you what, I won't mess with your beliefs, and I'm not asking you to see this the way we see it. I'm going to share the logic of this, and then listen within, and like you said, Ofer, follow what your wisdom, the journey that your personal wisdom takes you. But if we could do that with our children instead of indoctrinating them and telling them what to believe, but teach them what a belief is and what they're using to create beliefs, then that would change things. You know, that's why that my guide inside, I finally took the time to go to Krista Kamsel's website, and after all these years, I stopped being fast and furious enough to be calm and curious, which is one of her chapters in her program for young people. And you know, there's a thing for young people in early school, middle school, and high school. And Ofer, it's being translated now into Hebrew by Aviva, Judy. And in Italy, it's being transferred. That's being translated. The whole series of books for the teachers and the students is being translated. But to me, that's where the hope lies. That young people start hearing this in early school and middle school and high school, and some of the testimonials, and it is purely three principles based. It's got Sid's tapes, Sid's books, you know, and it's very beautiful. And I encourage anybody to take a look at it, because it's very powerful, I think, and a wonderful thing to be able to know about, to direct families to, parents, to say, you know, take a look at it and see if you'd be interested in going through this with your child, because you know, it's led to a lot of good things. But so would somebody, any other comments before we go forward, or if not, somebody like to go forward?
Ofer's turn.
Ofer?
So we are at page 130 or 139?
130.
Those who refuse.
Okay, yeah. Those who refuse good advice cannot be helped. Good advice is seldom welcomed in the mention of a fool. Anyone who tries to force learning on such a person is indeed a fool as well. To find wisdom, elevate your consciousness. Seek a grateful feeling for what you already have in life.
You want to do the next page too?
No,
Because
because I think I have something I want to say about that.
Okay.
Because I think that's very important. I mean, a lot of the guys when they get insights, they want to go around and spread them and teach everyone, and that's the worst thing you can do. So, like in the foundation where I work, after many years, I learned that if someone, the guy comes and says, listen, Ofer, there's someone who needs your help and everything. So my condition to meet someone is that he has to call me. I mean, he has to make the first step. Otherwise, it's almost always a waste of time.
Right.
I mean, if someone doesn't want to listen, I back out. I never try to force it. And I think that's a very important point, because sometimes I can meet guys and I tell them, like, listen, maybe we should meet again in a few months, and when you can listen, because sometimes people. And I had this guy once who came and he couldn't stop talking. And I said, listen, you're very full. So we're going to do something like that. I'm going to speak for 10 minutes. I'm going to tell you some stuff, and then I'm going to go, and we're all going to go our separate ways. And he was like, okay. That was after 2 days I've been with him. Like, we met, and day after that we met again. Wow. And I told him like 10 minutes something about innate wisdom and everything, and like he has a choice. And we went away. I met him 1 year later, and he came to me and he said, listen, I met him like in a party or something, and he came to me and he was like, Ofer Meyer, you were right. And I'm like, what? And I didn't even recognize him. He said, listen, you told me 8 months. I don't know where he got this time, yeah? You told me 8 months. And I'm like, what happened after 8 months? He said, I got up in the morning and I was depressed. And suddenly I remembered you said that I have a choice. I can choose. And I'm like, and I decided I can choose to either stay in bed and feel sorry for myself, or I can go out and do something different. And then I realized that my thinking is not, and suddenly everything, came to him. So it was very interesting how it happened, and how like insight can happen like that. But so in one thing, so I'm actually saying two things. I'm saying like you can't force it on anyone, but you can try to say some stuff and you don't know where, and you can plant the seed and you don't know when it's going to grow.
Yeah, those are two very powerful things, Ofer. That you can't be. It doesn't make sense to try to be a teacher if you don't have somebody who wants to be a student. But you can get permission, like you said, to at least listen, and then get permission to drop a seed that often takes hold. Yeah. Anyone want to comment before we go to that next page, which is very powerful? Anything? So, Fair, do you want to follow up on this gratitude? I always get a kick out of it when he says, to find wisdom, elevate your consciousness. And I want to go, yeah, thanks a lot, Sid. How the hell do I do that? But then he immediately says how to do that. Seek a grateful feeling. Look in that direction for what you already have in life.
Right.
Do you want to continue that next page?
Yeah, I'm going to go on. Gratitude and satisfaction have wonderful effects on our souls. They open our minds, clearing the way for wisdom and contentment to enter. Once you become grateful, the prison bars of your mind will fall away. Peace of mind and contentment will be yours. The ego and our intellect are functions of our personal minds, whereas wisdom is a function of the spirit. One is mortal, the other is immortal. Should I stop or continue?
Well, do we want to discuss? I'm almost thinking we've gone about 21 or 22 minutes that we might want to discuss this page and then take a little break.
Okay.
Yeah. So do you want to comment on this at all? That's a powerful 3 little paragraphs, very powerful as always.
I just like to say this thing about the gratitude and satisfaction. When I read this the first time, I've been already trying to figure out how to bring more gratitude in my life. But when I saw that it opened the way, clearing the way for wisdom and contentment to enter, that was kind of the doorway for me right here in this paragraph. That really was a transformer for me, and especially for the people that I now work with, the clients, the veterans and first responders. I keep bringing them back when they really get so much thinking going on, is they almost just to come back to this place of gratitude and just letting their thinking settle and just settling in there. And it's like it says, the prison bars of your mind will fall away. Peace of mind and contentment will be yours.
Wow.
And you can just sometimes watch people, if they're slowed down enough with the thinking, and you get this point right to them, especially when they're around the horses, this is where they really drop about the gratitude, and the story falls away. So anyway, thank you for letting me share that.
Well, just the hope, right? Just to have that hope awaken that could be possible. The peace of mind and contentment could possibly, because many of these people, I've worked with them, but through the years, myself for 35 years when I was in the Navy and during the Vietnam era and afterwards, but many people have given up hope that they can ever be at peace again, and so just to awaken that possibility. David, Ofer, did anybody else, or Judy, anybody else before we finish and take a break on this? Any last words on this section?
I just wanted to add one thing, is that when we talk about gratitude and satisfaction for what you have, it doesn't mean you have to have a lot. And I think for a lot of people in the world, they say, well, how am I supposed to be grateful? I'm, barely hanging on, and I don't have enough money, and I don't have this. But really, I think deeper than that, it's just waking up in the morning and having a fresh start. It's a new day, and satisfaction that I'm here. I've still, there's always, it's like if you're not dead and you're alive, something wonderful can happen at any moment, and it has nothing to do with the tangible world. It's an internal thing. And I think that for a lot of people that we're so used to, being thankful for, gifts and things that we get and our accomplishments and our achievements. And that's really not what this is pointing to. It's pointing to just the absolute wonder and awe that we're here in this world, and we can think, and we can always create something new. As Ofer said, we're always at choice.
Yeah. Anyone else? That's beautiful, Judy.
Thank you, Judy.
Yeah.
I'm. Go ahead. Did you have something, David? Yeah, go ahead.
It completely does come to choice, because quite a lot of people will be looking at the things that they don't have or that they wish they had, without being grateful for the bits that they do have already. Right. There's someone I'm speaking to at the moment who really wants to have more contact with their children and don't have that opportunity at the moment. Right. But there is hope that it could happen. But at the moment, they're mostly focused on the fact that they don't have that contact that they'd like, rather than potentially looking back at the fact that they've got wonderful children who are happy and healthy and alive, that they have the opportunity to have and share with in the future. Even that might not be today or tomorrow or next week or next year, but at some point it could happen. But the fact that they are happy and healthy and growing and thriving is an amazing thing to be grateful for. And just that little choice of looking at the positives rather than the negatives in a situation can just reset and take someone in a completely separate direction.
I'm really struck by, I remember there was, did I cut you off, David? I'm sorry again. No. There was I suppose it's on YouTube, it was an ESPN special about this man that was born with no arms and no legs. You ever seen that? And they show him as a baby. The parent, now a lot of parents would have ended that pregnancy, right? And no judgment about that, but they didn't. And they show him as a baby rolling around the floor and laughing and rolling this way and laughing and this joy emanating from this little baby with no arms and no legs. And he's now, he loves football. And he got into where he, with a thing with his teeth, he could do plays. And he just studied football, pro football, college football. He got an offer to be the coach of this junior varsity team in California. He's their coach. They wheel him out. He has no arms and no legs. But these kids talk about, when he speaks, we listen, because if he can have this feeling, and he knows football, and they went to the championship. They lost 6-3 in their in their league championship game, and he got offers to be head coach at a number of high schools in California, and he turned it down, saying, "No, we have something to finish here."
Aww.
And you go, holy crap! No arms, no legs, totally dependent on his life from others, and this guy had this exuberance and this feeling. Wow.
Yeah.
The other thing I remember was a man that came to speak in front of 450 people at West Virginia University, sponsored by the Physical Therapy and Occupational Therapy Department. And this sounds strange, but the fact that he was a smoker saved him from losing all 4 extremities. I mean, it's a tragic story, and I don't mean to be. They were on a mission in Iraq, and he took his hand off the thing and reached for a cigarette. And at that time, they hit an IED, and he lost both of his legs, and his right arm flew into the guy next to him, right? And he's lying there, but the one arm, because he reached for his cigarettes, he had one arm.
Okay.
And he's lying there, and he looks down, and he sees that his legs have been blown off. And he said, "Shit, I'll never get laid again." And his buddies, who were in shock and who had really been minorly injured compared to him, they suddenly, when he said that, "Oh shit, I will never get laid again," they realized he was there, and they quickly tourniqueted, and within 12 minutes had him on a flight to Germany, et cetera, et cetera. Fast forward, he's determined to be able to use his artificial limbs, what they start very small and get bigger, to be able to be there when his troop comes back in, like, I don't know, 7 months, and they said it's supposed to take 18 months or 50. Well, he was determined to stand there and salute them when he came. So what, this can be deleted, but I'm going to tell this story. So do you remember that story, Judy? So his mother comes to town, and he's in rehab, and they were a bunch of them were going to get a ride down to a bar to have a few beers. Now he has no legs and one arm, right? So he gets back to the hotel, and the people had left. So he and his buddy, they said, "Oh man, we're screwed." And he said, "Well, maybe not." So he goes to and he gets his mom had been visiting, and she had a rental car, and she had gone to visit somebody for the weekend. So two of them, the other fellow has no legs, but he has 2 arms. So they get in the car, they go to the car, he gets down on the floor, because he's going to either, with his one arm, he's going to either push the brake or the accelerator. And the fellow is riding in the front seat with no legs, but he can guide. So they head downtown. This is a true story. Remember this, Judy? He's telling the story. They drive down to Washington, D.C. through the traffic. Oh, brake, oh, accelerator, brake, accelerator. They somehow make it. They park the car. They make it with whatever they had to negotiate. And they get to the bar. Hopefully they didn't have too many beers, but they went with their friends, had the wonderful time with them. So they go back, and they're coming through the gate, and the Marine had, like, every 8th person wasn't it something like that, every 8th or 10th, he had to completely go through the car, right? So they come up, the guy's driving, and the guy's down on the floor, right, pushing the brake, and he's telling the story, and the guard says, he said, sir, he said, sorry, but you're my 10th one. I'm going to have to completely, if you'll pull over up there, I have to completely go through your vehicle. And so he says, okay, sir. So he goes over, and the guy, Joe says, Mickey, I think we're going to be in jail for a long time. And then, so this guy comes over, and he describes, he opens the door, and he's like he cognitively, no, this can't be. This can't be what I'm seeing. And he looked at both of them. He said, I don't know how you guys made it back here, but I don't know why I'm going to do this either. But go get this parked, and please don't ever do this again. But the human spirit, right? Anyway, like I said, that can be deleted.
That's got to be the ultimate gratitude for what you have.
Right. Isn't that an amazing story?
It's an amazing story. Wow.
Anyway, it's a true story. And all these, so he had all these, he was on the front of like Gentleman Quarterly or one of those men's magazines. And so he had all the covers, and all these women came up. I think they were probably, many of them were slipping phone numbers to the guy, at the time. And he said, if in case you were asking, yeah, he cleared that wasn't the last time he got laid, Anyway, it was something else. But just the human spirit was very beautiful. And he autographed with his one hand. He autographed for all these covers for remember that, Judy? It was very beautiful. Yeah.